So we're moving on to the next drawing assignment. This one now starts to get more detailed. We are now going to continue with layers, and this is a formal architectural drawing. Now I'm zoomed out a little bit here. This is page 1, and it is an 11 by 17 format. If I go to page 2, it's the same drawing, but this one is at a bigger scale, and it has more detailed information so that you can draw all of the walls and the doors and the windows, as well as the kitchen fixtures. And then I will get to the bathroom fixtures as well. That's going to be a separate drawing file that I'll provide for you that you can then open, edit, and place into your file. Architectural floor plans. This is the beginning. And for those of you, let me zoom in for a moment. For those of you that are not familiar with architectural drawings and architectural dimensions, please let me know and I will help you. What you're seeing here on the screen are the overall dimensions of the exterior of the building. And you could see how there's a dimension string, for example, here at the top, 12 feet 5, 18 foot 9 to the center of this window, 17 foot 8, and then 1 foot 7, which is this portion that sticks out down here, if you follow that extension line. This is a dimension string here at the top. And then above that is the overall dimension, so that instead of having to add this up yourself, you know that it is 50 feet 5 inches from one end all the way to the other. So these dimensions are provided to you so that you can begin to draw the exterior of the building. And then once you complete that, you can get into the interior of the building. And if there are any dimensions missing or any information missing along the way, please let me know. We're going to be using 3 layers at the very, very, very least. We may add some more later, but for now, these are the 3 that I'm aware of. We are not going to get to the hatch layer until much later. We're going to begin with the A walls layer and then the A plan layer. This A walls layer is going to be red and A plan will be yellow. And the reason for that is we will apply a specific line weight to each one of those colors. And if I zoom in here to my drawing, you'll see the difference between the walls, and they come in with a heavier line weight compared to the fixtures, the doors, the windows. They're a lighter line weight. And this is something that we need to achieve and we want to achieve in architectural representation. Based on this floor plan, you will then generate some elevations. Let me go back to the notes because I digressed here a second. Just mentioning to you, the exterior walls, all of them are 8 inches thick, and then the interior walls are 5 inches thick, and that's a typo and I need to fix that. With the exception of the plumbing bathroom wall that is 8 inches thick, and that plumbing bathroom wall is right here. Like I said before, I'll provide you with the bathroom drawing, and then you will need to select a roof type for this structure. If you cannot think of a roof type, a flat roof is just fine. You need to figure out what kind of a roof you want on your building, because you will then generate elevations, at least 2, and then you're going to generate a section through the building as well. And I'll provide you with more information later on in the semester. Do not add any of these notes or any of these dimensions to the drawing. That's just for you to use right now. Eventually, we will add some overall dimensions because I need to show you how to do that. And I also need to show you how to add a title. The other thing then to point out here, you'll notice the notes that I have in all of the rooms that you need to provide the furniture. And you've already been drawing some of this furniture, so you'll be able to populate it. As you can see, there are only, well, I'd say 2 windows, one in the bathroom, one in the kitchen that I dropped in. There's also the sliding patio door there that I placed, but it is up to you to add windows. I would put them in, no problem at all, but I want you to have some ability to make modifications to this plan. So you decide where you want to place the windows, and then you'll also decide how tall the windows are. They can go, for example, this window here in the bathroom, I know that in a typical bathroom, that window is usually about 4 or 5 feet up off the floor. and it's usually going up to about 7 feet or so. So it's a relatively small window. The window over here in the kitchen, that's usually 3 feet above the floor. In fact, it's a few more inches because it has to be higher than the counter. You need to place windows in here, and you're going to decide if you want your windows to go from the floor to the ceiling. Do you want your windows to be 2 feet off the floor? You'll put that information in, and I will see it on your elevation drawings when you provide them. So keep that in mind. The other thing you need to provide are the steps when you come off of the decks. At the entrance, I'm showing you here that the building is going to be 18 inches above grade. Each riser, which is each step that you take up, is 6 inches. And then the tread, which is where you put your foot down, that's going to be 12 inches deep. So if you see here, if we start at 0, we go up 6 inches, then we go up 12 inches, and then we go up 18 inches. If you come out to the deck here, right off of the living room dining area, you need some steps to get down. If you are out on the deck that's just outside the kitchen here, you also need to be able to step down. Where will you put the stairs? That is your choice, your decision to make. So there's some flexibility here for you to make some decisions. And if you want to make any more beyond the ones that I've noted here, please let me know. We can always talk. This floor plan is going to be the basis for the elevation drawings and the section. It's also going to be the basis for your SketchUp model. You're also seeing in here some dashed lines. I will show you how to draw those. And finally, I'll reinforce if there are any dimensions that you're not familiar with when it comes to architectural plan drawings, please let me know and I'll answer them for you. I'll help you out. Let me go to the next page. This one also has dimensions, and these are what we refer to again as dimension strings. If you look here at the top, it helps you place the walls. And my recommendation is going to be that you begin with the walls first. Once you establish the wall locations, then you can come in and provide the openings for the doors. And I made a note for the exterior doors. Those are 3 foot wide doors. And then the doors inside are 2'6". The bifold doors are 4 feet and the sliding door is 6 foot. If those dimensions look familiar, that's because you've completed it. You'll be making blocks and then you bring the blocks in here to use. So I will switch over to AutoCAD now and begin drawing this and show you how it's done. And I'm going to be switching back and forth between the AutoCAD screen and my Acrobat PDF screen. So I'll begin my drawing. As I've done in the past, it's a new drawing file. I click on the drop down. I want to select the AutoCAD drawing template, so I pick it. Takes me into a new project here, new drawing file. I will immediately format my units. Set them to architectural, precision to the nearest 32nd, my angle decimal degrees, precision to the nearest 100th of a degree. That's all I have to change, and I click OK. Next, save the drawing as. So save as, and this is going to be titled XPLAN. And go ahead and use all caps. I'm going to pause here for just a moment and let you know that the reason we are calling this XPLAN is because we are going to externally reference this file multiple times. It's been common practice for me that a drawing file that will be used as an external reference at least once, twice, I always put an X in front of it. That way I know it's one of those files that gets used multiple times. First initial, last name, XPLAN, and I save that. And then what I'm going to do is zoom it out quite a bit. This drawing is going to be much bigger than what I've done before. Then what I'm going to do is set up my layers. I'll go over to my layer properties manager, which I already have docked. So I'm opening it up right here. The first layer I want to construct is my A walls. And the reason it starts with an A is because it's an architectural layer. Usually we we'll use A for all of the architectural information that goes on a drawing. You have structural engineers, they'll use layers and they'll begin with an S. You might have mechanical engineers, they might use an M. Whenever we place electrical information, we begin that layer with the letter E. So that's just a way of organizing information. A, and then the description. What am I going to be putting on here? It's going to be my architectural walls. I enter that, and then I come over here for the color, and I set that to red, and then I click OK. And then the next layer, just to be sure, I'll go back to my drawing, or rather my PDF. It's going to be the A-plan layer, and that's yellow. So back I go to my layer properties manager, select a plan, and that will be color yellow. And OK. That's it. I'm all set with my layers. For a drawing like this, where to begin? Because it can appear to be overwhelming, especially if this is the very first time that you're doing a drawing like that. Make this 0, 0 right here. It's one of the closest points towards the bottom, towards the left, and that's usually where we anchor our drawings. And then from there, what I'm going to recommend is that you place all of the exterior walls, that you at least establish that footprint here. So I'm going to take this nice and slow. And it looks like if I start there at my point of origin at 0, 0, if I draw a line that is 42 feet, 8 inches in length, I will actually get that entire length there. So I'm going to make my walls layer current so I can begin drawing on that layer. So I begin by drawing a line, and I'm using the keyboard. So I type L and enter. It's my keyboard shortcut. Specify the first point, 0, 0, enter. And now I want to make sure that I turn ortho on. And the other thing I should probably be checking is my object snap settings, my O-track settings, all of that. But let me do that in just a moment. I want to make sure I get this line in here first. And that line, just double checking again, 42 foot, 8 inches in length. I type in 42 feet, 8 inches, and enter. And see, I didn't zoom out quite far enough, and the line is off the screen somewhere, and that's okay. I'm simply going to enter again. That will terminate the command. And now I type Z, enter, E, enter. That will give me a zoom extents, and then I will zoom out again. You can see the line right there, and I'm beginning my floor plan. I'm also, at this point, going to turn off the grid, only because for me, it is distracting. And while I'm down there in those drawing aids, I'm also going to double check. I do have dynamic input turned on, ortho, which I'll be toggling on and off. I have my object snap tracking turned on. Object snaps currently turned off, so I'm going to turn them on. And then I'm going to double check and see which ones I have selected as what we refer to as running object snaps. I had perpendicular turned on, intersection, midpoint, and endpoint. So I'm going to turn off perpendicular because for me, personal preference, I find that it interferes with endpoint. Sometimes instead of picking an endpoint, it'll go perpendicular. I don't like to have it on, so I just keep these three going: intersection, midpoint, and endpoint. And I'll click away from that. The next thing to do, I can continue drawing. And at this point, I'll zoom in so we can see this drawing a little bit better, a little closer. I can draw the next line up here, which is a 9-foot line. Let me do that. So I'll right click, go to my recent input and select line. And I don't have to type 0, 0. I simply select this endpoint here because I know that it is snapping to 0, 0, and I take it straight up. And that distance again, just double checking myself, 9 feet. So I type 9 feet and I enter. And I could go across. So if I continue now, that distance across is 7 feet 9 inches. So I'll type that in now. I'll go this way and type 7 feet 9 inches and enter. And can I continue? Let's see. Looks like I could continue. I can go and type 6 feet 4 inches. So I take this up and I type 6 feet 4 inches, enter. And I can continue. And this distance here is 12 feet 5 inches. So I'll type that in. 12 feet 5. And you notice I've been typing the inches, just because I want you to get into the habit of knowing how to use feet and inches. But once you're comfortable with it, just know, this is a friendly reminder, that I don't have to type in inches. It's automatically understood that if I just enter a number there, it's going to default to inches. So 12 feet 5, and I enter. And let's see, can I continue? Looks like the next dimension is 13 foot 1 inch. So I'll type that in, going up this way, 13 foot 1 inch, and enter. And I think I'm going to stop there. And let me go back to my drawing and show you why, because there are a couple of dimensions, and this one is actually just showing me to the midpoint of that window. So let me pause, because I also want to show you other ways of drawing this out. So I'll go back to the drawing now, and I'll simply stop there. I will right click, enter, that terminates the command. And now I'll just pan my drawing here for a moment and do this. You can see the beginnings of my building. If I wanted to at this point, I could actually offset the 8 inches and clean up those corners. And you know what? I think that's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to type in O for offset, enter. Distance is 8, enter. And all I'm going to do is just take this line, offset it up 8, take this one, offset it to the right, offset this one to the top, to the right, to the bottom, and over to the right. You have to keep in mind which way to offset. And I know that I was drawing the exterior side of that exterior wall, so everything had to go to the inside. So that's all I want to offset, so I'm going to enter. And now to clean up these corners, let me just zoom in right here, like this. To clean up the corners, I'm going to use the Fillet command. Home tab, modify panel, Fillet, right here. And by the way, there's a drop down. If I click on the drop down, I have a couple of other options, chamfer and blend curve, but I don't use those. Stick with Fillet here, and it tells me that it can do those rounded edges. And I don't want a rounded edge. I want a straight corner, perfect corner there. I'll use this to my advantage. I'll select Fillet. And if you look down at the command line, it tells me that my radius is 0 feet, 0 inches, which means that if I select 2 lines, they're going to connect, but instead of having a round radius, it's going to be square. And that's what I want. Before I continue here, I also know that I want to do multiple corners. So instead of doing one like this, if I click and then I click, it takes me out of that command. Let me right click and repeat it. And this time I'm going to use the multiple option. So I can either click down at the command line on multiple. I can type the capitalized letter, which is the M, and enter, or I can use my down arrow key. And this shows me the same options that I see at the command line, and I'll click on multiple. And when I do that, I can just go around and fillet my corners. Right click, enter, and I have started. It's better to put the walls in and then make the openings for the doors and windows. Eventually, when you get more experience, you're actually able to do both at the same time. But for now, because this is your first time, we're taking it nice and slow. I'll go back to my PDF file here and I'm taking a look. For me, I told you I'm going to stop here because if I continue, I'm really not sure how long that entire line is. But here's what I do know from this end right here, all the way over, that is 50 feet, 5 inches. So if I actually take that one line and I offset it 50 feet, 5 inches, I will be at that point. I'll type O for offset, 50 feet, 5, enter. And I select this line and I offset it over here. Done. Enter to terminate. Now, it's not at the right spot, but I can take that line, I can select it, turns on the grips. I hover over this grip and I click on it so I can stretch it up. And I have ortho on, which is great. So I'll just take it straight up. And if I want to, I can keep going and then eventually trim it. But I do have object tracking turned on. So I'm going to come over here and track this endpoint. And I track it by just pausing there for one moment and then moving my cursor off of it. It leaves behind that cross, which means that if I move slowly over here, it will identify that cross and it will give me that intersecting point. So I now can click. And I have managed to make those 2 points at the same Y coordinate. And now what I can do is go back and draw a line. So I type L, enter from here, and I go straight across there, enter. You notice it told me it was about 30, well, not about, exactly 38 feet. Did that work out? If I go back to my drawing, I went from here, 50 feet 5, it took me there, great. Now that line, as I study this, that line should be in a little bit more compared to my 42 feet 8 inches, which is out here. Is that the case? Yes or no? Not quite. So something is off somewhere on my end, and I need to verify. At this point, I don't get worried. I don't get concerned because I know I can double check my measurements. I tried something. If it works, great. If it doesn't, it's a wonderful learning opportunity. But let me double check this again. So from this point, 50 feet 5 to there, I'm going to actually check that distance. So I'm going to come back here to my drawing. Instead of doing a quick measure, I'm actually going to select distance. And I'd like to know the distance from this point here all the way across. And I just want to track this endpoint here and then take it up right there. And it is showing me 50 feet 5 inches. I'll tap the escape key, right click, repeat that measurement again. Oh, this time it's actually giving me the quick dimension. So it looks like in this case, all right, 42 feet there. Okay, I'll keep going and I'll find out where I might have some discrepancies, and that could be possible. So let me tap the escape key. I was actually going to do another measurement. I was going to do a distance check from here to there, and that is 42 feet 8. And if I look at my drawing, if I started here, 42 foot 8. I'll check and see what's going on there in just a moment. But I'm going to keep drawing. I'm going to assume that everything is turning out the way it should turn out. And then I can always come back and double check. Back to my drawing here, I'm going to offset 8 inches down, and then 8 inches to the inside. Enter. And I'm going to zoom in here, and I'm going to use my fillet command. Let me show you a little trick that you won't find in any help files. And this has been for a while for me. Before we had all of the different options, there was one available. If I type F, enter, you don't see it there. But if I type C, enter. That gives me a crossing window. And I go from here to there, and it will give me that fillet that I want. It's still a couple of clicks, but I don't have to worry so much about picking the line. So I'll do that one more time so you can see this. F, enter, C, enter. It's a crossing window, and I just want to cross through those two lines. Takes away the shorter ends, and this is what I'm left with. Time for me to continue. And now I'm really trying to figure out what's going on with my dimensions. So I need to do some double checking here. If I start it, that is 42'8" out here, and then it's 7'9" in that direction. So I need to double check and make sure that this is 7'9" and that's 42'8". And I prefer to go the old fashioned way, which is distance from here to there, 42'8". Great, tap the escape key. And my keyboard shortcut is DI, enter. And I go from here to there, and it is 7'9". Very interesting, because it should be offset a little bit there. So go back to my drawing. Oh, I see what I've done. 50 feet, 5 inches is actually to that edge. I was not paying attention. It is 1'7" setback. So this line here, these two lines, they actually need to come in 1'7". That's my mistake. Notice 50 foot 5 inches is from this end all the way to that end. So that's what I established. So you know what? I'm actually going to finish that corner right now. I need to do a better job of reading my own drawings. So I'll fill it, and I'll type F, enter, and this time I want to type M for multiple, enter. So I like to fill it this line, and this one, and then this one, and this one. Right click, enter to terminate the command. And I know that this is incorrect up here. That's fine. I'll fix that in just a moment. In fact, what I'll do for myself right now is grip these and just bring it down. Select this one, grip it, bring it down. That way I know it stops here. And I'll tap the escape key. And now I'll go back to my drawing. And I can see 1'7" is the difference there. So let me go ahead and draw that in right now. So here's what I'll do. I know that from this point over, it needs to be 1'7". So I'm going to zoom in, and I'm going to show you O track again, this time drawing a line. So watch this. L, enter. I'd like to track this endpoint, and I'm just hovering over that endpoint, haven't clicked. And now I'm going to drag my cursor over. And I would like to go over 1'7" and enter. And what it's done for me is it's tracked that back 1'7". And I'm just going to bring this line down like this. Right click, enter. Let me do that one more time. I'm going to undo. Because instead of drawing a line out here, instead of typing line, right, and drawing the line here, bringing it down, enter, and then either moving it over or offsetting or copying, what I did was track the endpoint. So I type L, enter. Specify the first point. This works when you have O track on. So make sure that object snap tracking is on. So I'm going to hover over the endpoint. Hover, 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 pause for just a minute. It tells me it found the endpoint. And now move the cursor slowly in the direction that you want to track. So I can see that it's tracking for me because it has that horizontal dashed line. I simply type in 1'7" and enter. And then I bring my line straight down like this. Enter to terminate the command. And now I will offset 8 inches. It still has that from the last time. Haven't changed it. I enter and I offset this line over here. And now I clean up the corner. So let me enter to terminate the command. Let me zoom in. And I'm going to use my fillet and the crossing window option. So I'm going to type F, enter. And just so you know, I'm using F, and then I'm using the space bar to enter. And you'll see with your left hand how it's very comfortable to do that. So I do this, C, enter, like that. I'll repeat it, F, enter with the space bar, C, enter with the space bar. And I've got that corner all set. And now they don't exactly meet, and that's just what I want to have. Now it's looking right. And it looks like it's going to come down a distance of 17 feet, 4 inches. I could measure from the bottom here on up, but those are two dimensions that I would rather not have to figure out, since I already have the one above giving me an overall distance there that I need. I'm just going to bring that line down 17 feet 4. But here's how I'm going to do it. I can draw myself a line from here over like this. I don't care what the length is. And then I enter. And then what I can do is move it. So I type M, enter. I select the line, enter. It doesn't matter where I pick. I just click. As my base point, I bring it straight down. Ortho is on. The distance there is 17 feet, 4, and I enter. And I know that's the distance. And then I also know to offset 8 inches from here down, and then enter. I'll begin by using the fillet command with the lines up here. So I type F, enter. I fillet, let's see, this one to that one. Repeat fillet, and now I should probably type M for multiple, enter. I like to fillet this one and this one, and then it's going to get real tight in here. So I need to fillet this line and this one, and then this and that. And then right click enter to terminate, and I have the exterior walls in place. So at this point, I can now think about adding the interior walls. And what I'd like you to do is take a look at the lines that continue through. I see that this wall here just goes all the way through. Now I do have dimensions for that on the next page, but I don't think I need them because I've already drawn this line that goes all the way across. I can just continue that all the way through to that end. And then my interior walls are 5 inches, so I can then offset 5 inches, and I'll have this wall going through. And then once I have that, I'll be able to use these dimensions. I'll be able to put in the opening that I need. That's my next step. And I'm just taking this nice and slow to help you think this through. There is no right or wrong way to draw it. What you're trying to do is be the most effective and the most efficient. Instead of trying to do everything at once, try to just do one thing at a time so that you're not overwhelmed. Provide the information that you do know, and then we get into the details later. That's where I'm going next. I'm going to take that line and take it all the way across. Back to my AutoCAD drawing here. This is the line, and I can just carry it all the way across. I could use my grips. I'll take the grip, take it over. And if I had perpendicular on, it would certainly go perpendicular. In fact, I can do a shift right click, select perpendicular, and I know that it will go like that. That's one way of doing it. Another way of doing it, select it, take it across. I have O track on, so I track this endpoint and then take it up. And when it meets that intersection, I click. So that'll work also. What's another way of doing it? I can use the extend command. Extend is the opposite of trim. Keyboard shortcut for that is EX. And then I enter. And then I take this line and simply click on it to extend it across. And now I enter. So I'm just trying to show you as many different ways of doing this, because I wouldn't be doing my job if I said there's only one way and then lock you into it. I would like it if you tried all of the different ways so that you're familiar with them, and then you'll decide for yourself which one is best for you. Moving on, I'm going to zoom in. And here's where it's very, very important that you are able to zoom and pan either between commands or during the commands. Just start to have that flexibility. So I will now type O for offset, and it is 5 inches. So I type 5, enter, and I select this line and I offset it up and enter to terminate. So now what I need to do is fillet this corner. So I type F, enter, and that takes care of that. And then I come over here, zoom in, I type TR for trim and enter, and I click right there, enter. Back to my drawing, I could see what needs to happen next. So it looks like I can take this line and offset it 13 feet 5, the vertical one, and that will give me this distance that I want. That line is already there. Let me zoom in, offset 13 feet 5, enter, from here to there. And then I know, well, let me show you real quick. It's 8'3". So while I'm still in my offset command, if I select the line, it does want to go 13 feet 5, but here's where I can type in 8'3" and enter. And that gives me the opening that I wanted. And now I can enter to terminate the command. And now what I'm going to do is extend these 2 lines up to that one. So I type EX, enter, and I extend, and then enter. Next thing I'll need to do is a trim. And let me show you something that you could do now, which is, it's fun. I'm going to type TR for trim and enter. The way that we're used to doing it is selecting each line individually. 1, 2, 3, 4, enter, and I'm done. The other way is to type TR, enter, that I showed you. And if you click, and it doesn't select an object, if you click on an empty area of model space, you'll automatically get this fence. So now I can take that fence and I can take it up here, click, and then I can click this by itself and it goes away. Enter. But the other way that I like to do it now is like this. I type TR, enter. And instead of simply clicking on an empty area of space, I actually click and drag. And when I do that, here I go, it will actually let me freeform a fence. When I do that, I now release my mouse and I trimmed all 4 of those segments at once. And then I enter. Next. So I have that opening. The wall is 5 inches on the inside. And if I go up here, I can see that it is 5 inches. So I can take that wall straight up 5 inches. And I can do the same thing here. I can start going up 5, but then I notice that that is an 8-inch wall. So I'm okay drawing this line up. I'll have to offset it 5, and then I'll have to offset it again 8 inches. That's what I'll do next. So from here, I can take this line and I'll do myself a favor. I'll actually grip it and take it up like this using the grips. Tap the escape key, it goes away. And then I type O for offset, enter, 5, enter. And I go from here over to the left and click. Enter to terminate the command. I go back to my drawing to see if that's correct. And yes, and that line or the 2 lines should go all the way through. So that's what I'll do now. So I'll come back over here, EX for extend, enter. and then using my click and drag to give me a freeform fence, and then release, enter. And then I think I will fillet this corner here. And then up there, I should type TR, enter to trim that segment out and enter. Coming along over here, I'll take one line straight up. The other one, it's only going to go so far, and then it becomes an 8-inch wall. But let me begin with this first one. I already have that line, and I know that this one does come up a certain distance, and I can offset that 5 inches. Let me tap the escape key, type O for offset, 5 it is, enter. In that direction, great, enter. And I know that this line does continue all the way up. So I type EX, or if you want to change a pace, right click, recent input, and there's extend. So I'll extend this line up and right click, enter. And then what I'll do is I will offset that line 8 inches. O for offset, enter, 8, enter, from here over there. Right click, enter to terminate the command. And I'm going to use my grips and just take it up about that far, because I know at some point it changes from a 5 to an 8. Tap the escape key and I'm on my way. TR for trim, take that out. And I think what I'd like to do, since I will be providing you with a bathroom, I just want you to outline the walls at this point. So if I go back, you can see that the bathroom is 8'11". There is no continuation of the dimensions here, and that's done on purpose so that you can think about this. And if it's 8'11", you know that the wall is 5 inches, then there's no need for this dimension because that wall is already in place. Typically in construction documents, we would provide that, but the reason I left those out here is to get you to think about this plan. 8'11" is going to be my offset right now. And if it sounds like a strange number, it is. And the goal here is for you to practice inputting dimensions, feet and inches. So I didn't make it exactly 9 feet on purpose. And also when I was working out the plan, those are just the numbers that it came to. So I type in offset, O, enter, 8'11", enter, from here down. And then I'm going to continue because I know it's a 5-inch wall. So I select this line and it does want to offset at 8'11", but I type in 5 and enter. There's my 5-inch wall and I will now enter. And then from here, what I should do, let me double check the drawing. See, that's where it does transition. This is a 5-inch wall here. So I will go ahead and use the fillet command to finish that. So from here, I actually feel like using my fillet and the C option for crossing. So F, enter with the space bar, C, enter with the space bar. Done. And then C, enter. And then one more time, F, enter, C, enter. And then I'll right click, recent input, trim, and I'll just trim this out. Right click, enter. I start to establish what I need. That really does it for the majority of the walls. Everything else, well, there's a closet over here and I'll get to that. But what I'd like to do before we go any further is I want to take one of the doors that I've drawn, a 2'6" door, make a block out of it and bring it in. So I'm coming over here to my doors drawing file. I also want to share something here with you that I did with mine. I actually took mine and I took the lines and I joined them. So let me do something here real quick. I'm going to turn off my grid. I'm actually going to explode this polyline. You may not know what that means. Don't worry about it. When I drew these, they're individual line segments. There's an option or a command in AutoCAD that allows you to join the lines. So long as the endpoints are touching, you can join them. So I typed J, enter, and I just windowed all of this. And then I typed enter. And when I do that, it will take them, and because they all, like I said, have common endpoints, it changes this into what is called a polyline. And a polyline is nothing more than one single object that contains multiple line segments that share endpoints. So I'll do the same thing over here with this one. I will type J for join, and I'll window all of this and enter. So I have that. This is a 3.0 door. I will do a distance check. In fact, I will just simply do a quick measure on it. Yes. So 3 foot. And then there's also this frame that we have in here. So it's a 3-foot door, but the opening needs to be 3 foot 4 inches. So if I actually do a distance check from here to there, that's 3 feet 4. I'm going to make blocks out of all of these objects, and then I'm going to show you how I'm going to bring them in. I type B, enter. I need to name this. Usually with doors, we name them by the door size. I'm going to type in door, and I'm going to type in 36, and then I'm going to say inches. Sometimes we leave inches out and it's understood, but 36-inch door it is. Pick point. Where do I want the base point to be? And right now it looks like 0, 0 is right there. That could work for me. I'm all right with that. And now I will select my objects. I select all of the objects here and I enter. That's the door. Everything looks fine. Block is made. I click OK. Now I come over here. This is my bifold. And bifolds, they don't usually have frames. If I just do a distance check here, you'll see that it is 4 feet from one endpoint to the other. And you should have something similar. Time to make a block out of this. So I type B, enter. If I look at my dropdown, I do have a door 36-inch. So this one's going to be called door, and I'll call it bifold. And it's 48 inches. So I type in 48 inches. Pick the point, the base point. So I'll click here, and I like to select this as my insertion point. My objects, I will select them. Enter. By the way, convert to block was already set. I don't even think about that anymore. I just assume that's what will happen. Behavior, I assume that's correct also. My block units are inches. I don't give a description. I'm not going to open in block editor yet, and I simply click OK. And then one more. That's my sliding door. And this sliding door, I didn't put in the frame because I didn't know the dimension of my wall thickness. Over here, I also didn't know the dimension, but I did this on purpose because I'm going to fix this in just a moment when I bring it in. One more to do. So B for block, enter. And this one also, I look at my list and you see everything is starting to get organized here. So door, and this is going to be sliding. And it's 6 feet, 6 times 12, I believe 72 inches. And that's good. I will pick my insertion point. And for now, I'll just pick this endpoint here. Convert to block, yes. Select the objects, all of these. Right click. That's an enter. I get back to my block definition window. Everything else looks okay. And I will now click OK. In this drawing file, if I go to my Insert tab and I go to Insert, I have all 3 blocks that I need. Great. So I'll save my file. Click on Save. And now I go back to my plan. And I know I said I was going to insert a 2'6" door, but because we made a 3-foot door, I want to show you the 3-foot door that would go in here. I'll do that now. I will go over to my insert tab, go to insert. From here, I would like to select block from libraries. So I click on that. I'll go over here to my library. I'll do a search and I will pick my doors and I'll click open. Giving AutoCAD a moment to identify all of the blocks within that drawing file. There they are. What I'd like to do is actually bring in this door first. So I click on the door and it comes in, and I simply want to place it anywhere near the location I need it. So I'll click it. And then I will minimize this. Let's go to auto hide and put it right there for a second. Now you'll notice this block, it's coming in and it's red, even though when I drew it, it wasn't. If I go back over here, I want you to notice something, that when I made the block, it was residing on layer 0. And when you make blocks, you always want them on layer 0. I didn't stress that earlier because by default, what you have drawn up to this point, with the exception of the elevation of the sofa, has been on layer 0. And that's where we want them, because when we come over here and we place them into other drawing files and we start to use them, they will take on the properties of the layer that you put them on. If I go back to my home tab, notice A walls is my current layer. But if I select my object now and I go to the dropdown and I move it and I put it on my plan layer, notice how it takes on those color properties. Tap the escape key, make the grips go away. And this is the block that I want. And I'd like to place it into the location where it needs to go. Always make your blocks on layer 0. That way they take on the color properties of the layer where you place them. I'd like to get this door in place. I go back to my example, and you can see that the door is here. And somewhere on the notes, just to let you know, I did indicate on the next page, leave at least 3 inches clear from your walls. I'm going to place this door right here, and I want to make sure, let me zoom in there. I want to make sure that I give myself at least 3 inches away from the wall there. I'll go back to my drawing. Coming over here, and what I'm going to do is draw a line, L, enter, and I'm going to use O track. And from this endpoint, I'm going to track it over 3 inches. So I type 3, enter, and I take it straight up. And here's where perpendicular running object snap would help me, but I'll continue to use O track, and I'll track this endpoint, take it up here and click, and then enter. And now what I can do is take my door and actually put it in place. Or before I even do that, I know for a fact the distance, and I'm going to type distance again, from here to there is 3'4". So I'm going to offset this line up here, that distance. Let me show you something else here. You notice how I did a distance check from endpoint to endpoint? If I didn't know exactly what that was and I was ready to offset, watch what I can do. I can simply say offset distance from this endpoint to that endpoint. It's 3'4". And when I click, it will remember that. And then when I come up here and I go over, notice how it's showing me 3'4". Anywhere I click on the left-hand side of that line will work. So I click here, done. Right click enter to terminate the command, and then TR for trim. I'm just going to use a fence like that, enter, and then I will move my door into position. So I type M, select my object, enter, and I'll move it from this endpoint over here. And here's where I need to turn ortho off, and I'll place it right there. Is it facing the right way? Let me look at my drawing. Yes, it is. The frame is not going all the way down. And that's because when I made the door, I defaulted that distance there, if we recall, right, was 6 inches, assuming that it was going to be a 6-inch wall. But it turns out it's an 8-inch wall. So what can I do to fix that? Here's where I take advantage of the block editor. So watch this. I'm going to select my block, and then I'm going to right-click it, and I will go into block editor. The interface looks slightly different, but do not be alarmed. I am now in the process of making changes to this block. And here it breaks it down to its individual parts and pieces. And what I'd like to do is actually change this from 6 inches to 8 inches. So what I will do is stretch it. Now, where's the stretch command? It's hiding, it's hiding, it's hiding. I'll go back home here and modify tab, and there's stretch. When I do a stretch, it does tell me select objects to stretch by a crossing window or a crossing polygon. And I know that a crossing window needs to go from right to left. So I know I want to stretch these 2 endpoints here and there. So I will simply click here, let it stretch over that way, click, enter, and then stretch this from a point anywhere that I would like to pick. Say, for example, here, take it straight down. I have to turn ortho on, straight down, and it was 2 inches. So I type 2 and enter. I'll go back to measure now and see if I have it at the right length. And I do, 8 inches. So that looks good. So what I'll do now is simply close the block editor. Asks me if I want to save the changes. Yes, I do. Now, mind you, this is an 8-inch thickness now, which is different than the original, and that's all right. So I'll save the changes, and now look at this. I come back in, and it has updated automatically. This is how blocks get used. And then let me show you, I'm going to get ahead of myself for a moment. You're going to be bringing furniture in as blocks, but there's no need for you to always make individual blocks. You can if you want to, but watch this. Just to bring in the furniture here, if I go back to insert and I go to insert, actually I already have it open. I don't know what I was thinking. I hover over here, I open up another library, and I will open up my sofa and rug and click open. Give it a moment. There it is. I can actually, instead of just bringing in that one sofa, I can actually click, drag, and drop this in like that. I probably want to change the arrangement. And if I click on the object, notice how it acts as all one and it's on the wrong layer. So I can go back home over here. And I don't have my furniture layer yet. Remember, I had said earlier that I probably don't need it just yet. But I guess in this example that I'm showing you, I should be putting it in. And I'm just getting ahead of myself just a little bit. So don't worry. I just wanted to show you the use of these blocks. So just for now, let me create a layer here, a new one. And I'll simply call this one a furniture like this. I believe the color on that may be blue, but I will confirm that later. I'll click OK. I can take my objects, put them on the furniture layer. There we go. But I want to edit this. I was able to bring it in as a block. I now find myself needing to explode this. So I'm going to type X and enter. And here's what's going to happen. When I select the objects, and I enter, they get broken down to their individual parts and pieces. This was never made into a block, but this was. So that's still acting as a block, and they go back to their original layer, which is 0. All I would have to do is just select my objects, make sure I put them on that furniture layer. Tap the escape key, and then I can go ahead and manipulate, make whatever changes I needed to that. And I guess the reason I'm showing this to you right now is because I'm going to provide you with the bathroom, and then you'll be able to use that bathroom drawing and manipulate it. You'll have to explode it and complete this bathroom over here.